Hey, this is Faye, and today somebody is gonna get drawn to law. And this somebody is gonna be Cass here. Now, before we begin, a quick heads up, because there may be a tiny whiny bit of spoilers for Heavensward. But I will try to keep the focus of the history of the place rather than some of the stuff that happens in the MSQ or plot points for that expansion. So yeah, we're gonna look at Ishgard because Cass here is an Ishgardian Elezen. He's a retired soldier and a bit of a traditionalist. Traditionalist. I am so good with words. He's a bit of a traditionalist. And like many Ishgardians, he's not very fond of outsiders. So I figured today we could talk a little bit about Ishgard and about Kurfus and about the military and the Ishgardian force. And because he seems a little less chippyable, and because the Elezens in general remind me of 80s cartoons or 80s anime and manga, I've tried to make it a little bit more in that style, but I am not super well versed in that, so yeah, we'll see how it goes. So, starting out, the motto of the city is "Off the sky, from the sky, for the sky," which I find very nice. Ishgard was founded all the way back in 350 of the 6th Astral Era, and do recall that we are currently in 1577 right now, so it's over 1,200 years ago. And the story behind the city's founding is kind of really spoilery, so suffice it to say that it's a bit chaotic and it's filled with a lot of Elezen kings, and we can make a long video on that one day if anybody is interested. The city consists of Ishgardian Elezens, which are 70% of the population, Midlander Hure, which makes up 20% of the population, and then 10% other, which, amongst other things, actually includes some Seawolf Rogadin that were hired by House Themail. I guess they are pretty big and looming and will do a guard job just as well, if not better, than a Kurthan boy. Ishgard's population is predominantly Elezen, as you will see if you walk around the place, and of those, they are mostly or almost entirely using the Wildwood model, even though they are their own separate clan of Elezens. Now, how the common ancestry works out and how this Elezen clan was split by the Hure that migrated to Eorzea is a little bit of a complicated topic, and I'll just refer you guys to the Salt Exarch, who made a really good description of this when he was describing the different races of Eorzea. In Ishgard, there are NPCs that do use the Dusk White character model, but I think it is important to underline that the ashy tones and the dark blue or the more drow-like looking Elezens, they hail from Gelmora, and this is the hallmark of those who lived there after the Wildwood and the Hure left the place, so after that split, after that conflict. But suffice it to say that the Ishgardians hail from a time before this split into Duskwhite and Wildwood, so they are not part of that conflict at all. Ishgard is a city-state of Kurfus, Stravania and the Sea of Clouds, and they have soldiers that are stationed in all 3 of those territories. Back when they wandered into Kurfus, it actually used to be green, and it was green up until 5 years ago in the game, where the Calamity totally changed the ethereal balance. So now there is an ethereal imbalance in the area that makes it snow constantly, but back in 1.0, when you ran into Kurfus, it actually looked like this. Very nice and green, very almost Scottish in a way. I've never been to Scotland, I don't know, I'm just saying shit. You can see the Aetherites in the abandoned camps in Kurfus, and they are sort of blown out by the sudden blizzard, they're just exploded. Ishgard has 4 high houses, but there are actually several smaller noble houses that work as vassals to the 4 big ones, and these will also be referred to as highborns. Long of Ear is a compliment that you can give an Elezen. It is used in one of the quests to describe a particularly fetching Elezen man, and that is the father of one of the characters. There exists some food that is associated with the war effort and the battle with the Dravanian horde. For instance, there is the Sum'al tart, which is described as a traditional Ishgardian cake made up of several stacked layers, tapered to resemble Sum'al, a peak sacred to the Dravanians. Ishgardians believe that devouring the mountain will grant them fortune in their struggle with the dragons. So that is a pretty neat detail. And Ishgardians have been doing this war for a long ass time, over 1,000 years. So they have really refined their military structure to fit with how best to keep the entire city and region safe. So, for instance, the Temple Knights are tasked with defending the national interests as well as maintaining public order. They sort of act like a cross between the military and the police inside of the city, and they defend whenever it is attacked. And if you actually go around Ishgard, especially here by the Holy Stables, if you look down, you can see that there are some dragon corpses. So, some of these have made it inside of the shield. The shield was made in 550 and was later dubbed Danavan's Color. It is powered by 24 dragon eyes, and it was meant to help weather the city against the onslaught of Nidhogg after he got pissed. And there is a trial where you get to see this shield and how the dragons are trying to get through it. Because if you wonder why don't they just fly by and raze the city to the ground, well, this is because they have this big ass shield around the city that is really powerful. Aside of the Temple Knights, there are 5 distinct combat units, as well as specialized support and non-combat units, such as sappers, porters, clerks, and what have you, that support the Temple Knights. Of particular note are the Order of the Friars Templar, that sort of tend to the religious and spiritual needs of the forces. Then there are the Temple Knights Hospitaliers, which I am pronouncing wrongly, I'm pretty sure, but which tend to the physical injuries. And then there are the Knights Dragoon, or the Order of the Knights Dragoon, which Estinian poster boy. However, the city sadly doesn't have enough Temple Knights to cover both the city and all of the associated territories. So for Kurthus and the wider territories, the city relies on the 4 high houses and their subordinates to defend it. I have tried to figure out which areas are under the protection of which houses, and I am sure that there is a side quest somewhere or a list somewhere out there on the interwebs which would have told me, but I decided that I would do this a slow and dumb way and just fly around and look at shields, because efficiency is overrated. So the Durandare, they have this shield with the bell, and their motto is Northward, which that's kind of underwhelming, just northward. But what do I know? Anyway, these shields can be found in Whitebrim, and on the very same map, the Durandare Knights are also seen guarding Dragonhead, the city, not the camp. Which is not surprising, because there is the Durandare Observatorium in Dragonhead, so it makes sense that they are sort of stationed there. They are also present at Falcon's Nest, as well as some of the outposts on the way towards the Convictory. So Durandare has a pretty large force, which is also what they're kind of known for. Fort Tom, with their unicorn shield, have the motto of Shields High. I like that one. It has a little bit of oomph to it, right? And they can be found in Camp Dragonhead. Lots of unicorns around here, which, we meet probably our favorite unicorn here. Anyways, they even have a gazebo that has a horn, which is why the mansion is known as the Alicorn. Semail has a shield with a rook and 2 halberds, and the very lovely motto, by the 100th blow. which seems to inspire some sort of perseverance, but in recent generation you could also take it in a different meaning, because they've focused a lot on building and constructing. Most of these forts and areas have been built by House Themile. These are not found outside a lot of cutscenes in Curthus, but they do patrol near the Themile Darkhold and are also in some of the fates, if I remember correctly. House Hylanard has this very lovely shield with a rose on it, and their maxim is "Red bleeds the name of the rose," which is also kind of charming, but a lot less, military than the rest of them. These are generally found in the Sea of Clouds, where they hold down the fort there, the fort being this very lovely treehouse fort, as well as the camp around the Protector. The Protector is kind of funny, because while the Ironworks Forge are helping out the people at the Skysteel Manufactory with making airship of different contraptions and airships of different sizes and different weapons, the Skysteel Manufactory actually made a big flagship that was meant to lead the Ishgardian war effort on the assault of the Dravanian forces in the Sea of Clouds. Sadly though, the Protector broke down on its maiden voyage. It is kind of the very tragic Titanic of the Ishgardian force. Should have been the Bismarck, ended up being the Titanic, I don't know. But the Protector is still stuck there, and this is part of the House Hylanard camp there. There seems to be training going on most of Curthus and Ishgard, but of particular note is the Light Feather Proving Grounds, which is sometimes used as an arena for fights and battles and tournaments, and also for picking out squires and testing knights against each other. Some of the Heavens Wards, some of them have in their background that they proved themselves in the Light Feather Proving Grounds or in tournaments that were connected to it. But the Light Feather Proving Grounds itself is actually meant for chocobo and chocobo training and, jousting or knight fighting, sword fighting from bird. I don't know, actually. But it is named the Light Feather Proving Grounds because of the flurry of feathers that will come in the wake of a spirited fight. So that is kind of sweet, but it is also sometimes repurposed for normal knightly tournaments. Yes. So Ishgard has elevated a couple of their fallen knights into sainthood. For instance, Dragoon Valoroyant, who you may remember from the Saint Valoroyant's forum inside of Ishgard. He was elevated to sainthood because he died to Nidhogg, who'd actually been dormant for a long while at that point. But he woke up and he attacked a lot of people, and Saint Valoroyant died in trying to defend a bunch of shepherds. He was elevated to sainthood some years later. Saint Renette is another saint. She was also a dragoon, and she went on a killing spree after a dragon killed her lover. After killing the dragons involved, she put down her lance and retired, which was very disgraceful. Generally, when you become a temple knight or any associated thing within the city, this is a for life position. So the fact that she was retiring and decided to become a nun and help the poor and needy was just so outrageous that she was actually a bit in disgrace and was only elevated to sainthood much later because the church was in a little bit of a bad PR situation and needed something that the people would rally behind and be happy for them to have done. And I think looking at the time, that is just about what we can manage this time around. I don't really know if I feel like this art turned out the way I wanted it, but it kind of works, and I'm sure that he'll be happy to see it. I hope you also enjoyed a little bit of facts about Ishgard. And if you have any suggestion as to any cultures or races or cities or regions that I should cover next, and maybe have a suggestion for what character I could try to draw, then feel free to leave me a comment or poke me. I would really love to hear. Either way, I am so thankful you made it all the way here. Thank you so much for watching. Have a really lovely day. and take care. Bye!